Hello there, I'm Manish Shekhar and welcome to the Global Dialogue series on neurodiversity. Neurodiversity embraces how we all think, learn, communicate, and experience the world differently from one another. In this podcast, every fortnight, we talk with different people to showcase how we are accepting the diversity of human brain and mind in different parts of the world and the need for inclusion of all individuals with different cognitive abilities into the mainstream society.
Our guest today is Veena Naren, a special educator since 1996 and a parent of a 21-year-old neurodiverse individual. Veena has been a strong advocate for building awareness about Fragile X syndrome in India and breaking the gender bias for mothers of neurodiverse children. Veena has helped many parents by sharing her own experience of raising her son Varun with a positive attitude and bringing out his capabilities to become a self-reliant and contributing member of the society. Hi, Veena. Thank you so much for joining our Global Dialogue series today. It's a pleasure to have you. Could you give a few words about yourself to our audience today?
Hi, Manu. Thank you for including me in this wonderful session. Firstly, I'm Veena. I'm Varun's mother. I came in touch with Manu because Varun learns coding with the hashtag code. And I remember Manu's one statement telling me, I'm sure he will learn. So you don't worry. And I would keep telling, Varun has difficulties with math. Will he be able to do it? And, Manu being Manu just told me, don't even worry. I'm sure he'll learn. And believe it or not, he's completed 10 levels of creative coding. And now he's into independent coding. So thank you, Manu, for the belief in Varun.
It's been my pleasure, actually.
I have a child, Varun, who's now 22 years old, and he's diagnosed with Fragile X. I am myself a Fragile X carrier with the pre-mutation of Fragile X. And much before Varun was born, I've been a special educator, which I did in 1996. And of course, I didn't know I would also be having a child with neurodiverse needs, and it's been a difficult but also a satisfying journey. Now, 22 years is a long time, and today I think my husband and I are both really proud to be called as Varun's parents because he's achieved a lot, not only in terms of academics or whatever people want to call it, but more because he's now self-reliant, he's been independent, and he's been, he is a very contributing member of the society. I think our aim had always been to make Varun do what he loves and love what he does. And I think he is getting slowly there. So I think we are blessed with that.
That's really amazing. I mean, it's really amazing to hear how you guys have brought him and how you nurtured him. Could you tell us what is Fragile X syndrome exactly?
All right. So Fragile X syndrome is a genetic condition, and also it shows up with intellectual disability, behavioral challenges, and learning difficulties. And I think the key is there is huge amount of anxiety and hyperarousal in children with Fragile X. And since it's a genetic condition, it just requires a simple DNA blood test to be identified. And I know we struggled with Fragile X with Varun because he got diagnosed at age 11 only. And because it's almost like an umbrella, just as you say, autism spectrum disorder. So many people are able to identify autism spectrum disorder. And even Varun was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, with the PDD-NOS diagnosis. That is pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. But there was this huge amount of anxiety which Varun used to face. And I think with Fragile X, the key is that they have huge anxiety. They love social interaction. I think that also differentiates with autism, but it's also a single gene cause of autism. So I think what makes Fragile X easier is that you can have a diagnosis. because it's a genetic condition. And I think we always advise, as you know, as now people who have had a child with fragile legs, that if you have an autism diagnosis, please go and also check for fragile legs, because you might get a diagnosis of fragile legs and it helps in differentiating what you can do differently from what you can do with autism. Because therapies are the same, and fragile legs and autism both have sensory issues. There are a lot of sensory challenges, but I think the major thing with fragile legs is anxiety and hyperarousal. And that needs to be tackled really well, because I think if that happens, then the child is able to lead a better life.
Okay. Is Fragile X syndrome in India normally misdiagnosed as autism?
Yes, it is. Even in fact, in Varun's case also, first they were at age 3 because there are a lot of characteristics which are similar. They do not give eye contact. But actually, with Fragile X, if the child is comfortable, once he gets comfortable with you, he will give you an eye contact. He is extremely shy, and it is because of the anxiety level that he doesn't want to give you an eye contact. So I remember Varun was also, most of the doctors labeled him as, kid with autism. And, at the back of my mind, I kept thinking and wanting to tell them that, listen, he doesn't have, because, I'm having worked with both kids with autism. I knew that Varun was different, and there are kids having autism and Fragile X diagnosis also. So maybe the line of treatment, of therapy, of the sensory, the OT, and all remains the same. But I think with Fragile X, the kids with Fragile X have a better receptive language rather than an expressive language. So intensive, good amount of speech therapy in Fragile X will get children to be much more interactive with people and get them further.
What has been has there been any challenges in diagnosis of Fragile X syndrome in India?
So in India, first of all, being a genetic condition, it becomes a taboo for a lot of parents, because the mother is accused of, okay, because of you, my child has got Fragile X. So that is a big taboo for a lot of mothers who don't want to do a testing, because then it can affect them. But Fragile X can be passed on even from the male and from the female. So I think that needs to be very clearly mentioned, because if you talk about the chromosomes, the male has the XY chromosome and the female has the XX chromosome. So if a boy is born, he takes the mother's X chromosome and the father's Y chromosome, right? And from the father, he takes the Y chromosome, and from the mother, he takes the X chromosome. Whereas in a girl's case, she takes the mother's X chromosome and the father's also X chromosome. So all men will pass on, if they have a faulty X gene, they will pass on to their daughters. But if a child like Varun is a child with Fragile X syndrome, I pass it on to him. I am the pre-mutation carrier, because he takes the Y chromosome from my husband, but he takes the X chromosome from me. So, and since I have two X chromosomes, it is a complicated situation. But since I have two X chromosomes, I could have, it's a 50% chance. And since I passed on the gene which was fragile, he got the Fragile X syndrome. So the other X chromosome, which is so-called normal, didn't get passed on. So if a boy has Fragile X, he gets it from the mother. So that is very clear.
And that's really sad to hear when you mentioned about taboo. And I think many parents will, especially mothers, would not go for diagnosis. Is that still the state? Have we changed from that? Or do you still hear many stories of that?
We still do hear stories. And whenever I've gone for talks, whether down south or wherever, still there is that taboo and they don't want to do a diagnosis. So sometimes, you just want to leave it, but you're worried if they want to have more children, because if you want to have a second child, you don't want again the mother to have another child with Fragile X. And now you do have situations where through an IVF, you can choose to have a normal child, or okay, whatever you want to call it, neurotypical child, because you can isolate the gene which is faulty and you can have a neurotypical child. So in a way, it is good if they are aware of it, because it will help them in diagnosing and having a child with a neurotypical child. But it is difficult because many parents don't want to try it out. And, we've tried telling parents, why don't you just do this test? It might just help you. But the taboo does not want them to. And they say, it's okay. So what? But I know for us as parents, when Varun did not have this diagnosis, I remember for years, because we had huge behavioral challenges when he was 7 or 8. And we would keep saying with this anxiety, and we've been to all the doctors in, the best doctors, and none could identify because they felt he was cognitively way ahead. But we knew the challenges that Varun faced with the cognition. There are cognitive challenges, of course, and there are challenges, behavior challenges were tremendous because of the huge anxiety. So I think having a diagnosis did help us because it gave us a direction to work on. And there are a lot of now treatments for Fragile X. There is no cure, but there are treatments, target treatments given to make the children's life better and certainly parents' life better. Because with behavioral challenges, what happens is the children are suffering and so are the parents. And in our country, it is very difficult because in India, in huge classrooms, you have a child with a behavioral challenge. They just cannot handle it.
That's true. One thing that I observed from Hashakor is that I see that it's mostly the mothers who are with the child and very few fathers. Okay, very few. I can count numbers also. Why is that the case here?
One is that the father is the earning member, many cases. Sometimes I feel even if the father gives enough moral support, I think that's a big deal. There are instances where because of the child being neurodiverse, there have been cases of fathers leaving the children and going. So I think it is a huge responsibility, and unless it's a collective responsibility, it just doesn't work. I have a husband who's extremely busy, but we have distributed and he's extremely supportive. I think that support is extremely necessary for the child to grow. Financial support, physical support, moral support. And I think in some cases, of course, in a country like India, the father is the earning member of the family. Most of the times, the mother is also an earning member of the family, but she still has to be at home also, and she has to work also, but she has to look after the child also. And I think we need to change the mindset, which will take a little time.
Definitely. I think that was going to be my next question. I mean, it's not right of us to expect a mother it's not the mother's responsibility alone, right? And it's definitely not the mother's, like you already talk about Fragile X syndrome, blaming the mother. It's Absolutely. Definitely not her fault also. I mean,
no.
As a society, what do you think we should do to change this?
I think first is huge amount of awareness is required. And awareness of telling people it is okay, right? First, if you've already had a child with who's neurodiverse, you just need to accept it and move on. We can't be crying about it and saying, oh, I have a child with a disability. Now what do? I can't do this. Because ultimately, we all need to grow. One thing is that a lot of our parents also keep comparing and saying, no, but my child can't do this as well as that person. And this is something I've always religiously told parents, that Maybe our child will take, 10 days to learn something, whereas a neurotypical child might take a day. Does it matter? No, it does not matter. Everybody learns, right? But everybody learns at their own pace. So first is, even if you have a child who's neurodiverse, you just need to make him self-reliant. Self-reliant as in first, there are a lot of parents who ask me, how do I go about it? And I need to tell them, listen, first thing is life skills. Is your child toilet trained? Is your child, able to do all his daily living needs first? That should be your priority. Because even if he joins a school, he needs to go there and nobody wants to take a child who is not potty trained, right? There are issues. Still, a lot of children don't get trained. But I think the key is we should know our priorities. If this is my goal, and in India, we are only there that my child has to learn math, my child has to learn English, he has to pass his 10th standard, he has to pass his 12th standard, because you need to show the world that my son is, he can do it. Okay, and I think the benchmark is passing those exams. And I think that has to go firstly. And even, I think so many countries are talking about skill-based. Even if you are neurotypical, I think there are countries like Sweden and all who start vocational training from a young age, not just for neurodiverse, it's for everybody. And I think that is where our goal should be, where they're making children work towards independence and earning in a proper fashion, like you're doing, Manu. I think in hashtag code, your goal is that not just make them learn and then do what, right? It needs to be, you are working towards them getting a job somewhere and showing how worth they are. I think that is what we all as parents need to do. That work towards the child becoming independent and a contributing member of society. It is not, they have to earn, of course, well, but don't take that, he's disabled, so, please, allow him. No, we need to be having an equal society. And I think if equality is maintained, we'll go really places.
Definitely. Would you say Varun has grown so much because of not choosing a traditional academic path for him?
I think so. At least we as parents think so. Because I remember people would tell me, oh God, he's so cognitively he's doing well. Why aren't you making him do this and this? And we've gone through, he's been in a regular school. And when he went into higher classes, we realized he was learning, but he was just rote learning. And with all our behavioral challenges that we faced, all that I was doing is on a Saturday, Sunday was giving him his medication, making him study, and getting him ready for the next day of school. And Saturdays, Sundays was one torture. Nor was he happy, nor were we happy. And one day my husband and I just sat down and said, what are we doing? I mean, he needs to be savvy. He needs to know how to go about whatever he does. He doesn't need to learn how many countries are there in Africa or how many. He will learn it, but we will teach him how to research on Google. Why does he need to learn it by heart? And I think that is the path the two of us took, though I had a lot of opposition from a lot of people, said, are you sure you know what you're doing? And we said, no, I think we will try it out. And we started him on skill-based activities. So we started him on baking. And because I knew he had an inclination towards that. So I put him in a proper course, which would teach him. And we have been very fortunate that we got the right kind of people to work with him. And even today, I still see to it that he gets the right kind of people to work with, because he needs to grow in the proper direction. We are not here to prove to anybody that he knows everything. He doesn't know everything. But he needs to, only if we expose our children, do they actually learn. And in Fragile X specifically, we have noticed that they are excellent at imitation skills, excellent. And visual memory is again outstanding. That is their plus point. So why not use all those things to teach him? I think he has learned so many recipes on his own just seeing YouTube. So he knows how to do it. So I think goal of parents should be work towards teaching him how to learn all those things rather than just doing an exam and finishing it. It's good. There may be parents who want the exam because they want to do a further course. I'm not against that at all. But I think you should prioritize what you are looking for your child. And this is something at every conference that I go to where I'm called, I keep telling this. And, but, I think it is a tough decision. And we still are so guarded by our society that we live in. That I think it will take time. It will happen, certainly. I mean, I don't deny it. And there are people also now who understand, oh, Varun can do all this. Oh, I thought he couldn't. So sometimes I just feel, let them just do what they're doing. The world will see it.
Definitely. And I think one of the most important things that you mentioned, and something that we also believe in Ashakor, is that it's important to learn how to learn more than, that's the importance. The knowledge is always available to us through internet, right? So it's important to grasp that knowledge and how to utilize it. That's what we should really be passing on to the kids.
Yes.
Now, one thing that I've really heard from your story is that you guys have always been against us. Like society has always been against you. How is that?
I won't say against, but yeah, I mean, now everyone says, oh, you did a wonderful job. But that is because they see Varun successful, right? But it wasn't the same at that time.
True. What has been the mental trauma for that agony for when the diagnosis came and when you decided to take Varun out of school and teach him? How did you handle? What has the effect been for you personally?
For me personally, I know because I was a special educator, as soon as Varun was born, the first thing was, is he okay? Because you've been dealing with kids with neurodiverse needs. There was always that fear in me. And that's how at age 2, I did take him to a speech therapist saying, I don't think he's talking like a 2-year-old. And of course, today I can laugh about it, but I know it was not a trauma, but it was, oh my God, I think there is a problem. And it wasn't easy, but the key was that we did early intervention. So I didn't have a diagnosis. I had nothing, but I said, let me still, so as you said, you teach them to learn. So I said, if I'm not able to do it, let me take him to someone who's going to teach him how to do certain things. And, I remember telling the speech therapist, and she was a very competent Dinaz Wadia. And I told her, Dinaz ma'am, he's pointing out, he's telling everything, but he's not saying it out, so I don't know, I'm going wrong. She said, no, you're going fine. Just do this. And I remember she said, no, you work with him from home. You're doing the right thing. But after a point, I told her, no, I want you to teach him how he needs to go about talking or how he needs to do a certain thing. And I think that helped a lot because one is that we were already prepared that, okay, this is what, there is a problem. Okay, we'll try to work on it. We may not find the solution. I mean, we are still not found the solution. We are working towards it, and it's always work in progress. There are some very good days. There are some bad days. There are horrible days. But I think there is this balance which is required also, which will keep me on my toes. So I think that was very important. Early childhood intervention, if you do see a problem, do it. There is no harm. It is a lot of hard work. But if it is required, I think we have to go ahead with it. And the acceptance, I think at age 11, I think by then, my husband and I were like, I wish we get the diagnosis. It will make our life simpler. Because we were like, oh God, this huge anxiety. Why is this happening? Why? At least it was like a closure for us. He may have been a little more upset than I was because I had kind of reconcile. Okay, if this is it, we move ahead. And I think I've always lived my life like that, okay, this is the problem. Now next, I'll find a solution to it. I think all children, all parents of children with special needs are extremely resilient. It's not just me. Every parent is so resilient. They realize that this is how it is. Okay, let's find out what will help my kid. And I think that is a great attitude that all we parents with children with special needs have. So I think the key is that you first accept and you move on. And instead of crying about it, yes, you cry. You have to cry. That is your cycle of healing. But then you need to move on. I think I keep telling that to parents too. And I know when we had severe behavioral challenges from Varun, I know I would come home crying. I would say, what is happening? I'm not able to handle it. And then we discovered new medications for him. And I think the moral support of my husband was immense, because he also did his job of finding out what would work, what would not. We both diversified. He did about the medications and I would look at therapies. So I think one is acceptance, which is difficult, but it's better to just take it and go ahead.
Yes, and what I really like hearing about from this is that how both you and your husband, you guys divided the work, like the task among yourself and supported each other. And I don't see that in many Indian families, right? And hopefully people who are watching this will get inspired and learn to help and support their wife and their child also.
I mean, not one day. I remember, after the diagnosis, I said, I'm so sorry, Naren, because of me, we have a kid. It just came out. And he said, don't be silly. It doesn't make any difference. And I think that was the reassurance that I got that it's okay. It could have happened either ways. And that is something which parents or in-laws, I had the most wonderful father-in-law who just tell me, don't worry, it's okay. You have to work on it. It's okay. And I think that has also kept me going. And I feel, today Varun is there and he's a very happy-go-lucky kid. And because he's doing what he loves doing. And I'm in fact now reading a book on Ikigai, what is your purpose? And I feel, his purpose is to entertain, and my purpose is to make people happy and explain to them that life has challenges, but there is always a path to what you want to take. You can keep crying if you want, but I think if you do move in a positive direction, it works. It works wonders, let me tell you. It doesn't mean I'm a super mom or something. I have my bad moments, but I think we have to also take it forward.
Definitely. I personally know the efforts you have been putting towards building awareness about Fragile X syndrome in India. Could you share a few words about that?
Yeah. So when in 2011, we read a paper article. That's how the thought of Varun may have Fragile X came in. And as soon as we saw that article, my husband and I remember that whole night we sat and read about Fragile X, because we ticked, like a checklist. We said, okay, this is what Varun had, this is what Varun had, this is what Varun has, this is what Varun has. And we said, oh my God, so it looks like he has Fragile X syndrome. So it kept talking about, maybe more intellectual challenges. But we said, no, but we can see this is Varun 70% or 80%. And once we called up at that time, she still continues to be the Fragile X India chairperson, Shalini Kedia. And we called her up saying that we think, our son has Fragile X. And she said, are you sure? And of course, there were a lot of pointers which told us, because he had a lot of ear infections as a kid. And I had a delayed pregnancy. So a lot of mothers have, it's called the Fragile X POI. So a lot of mothers have problem with fertility issues. So a lot of boxes got ticked, when we were checking out. And when we finally got the test result, we were kind of sure that Varun has fragile X. And I remember them all coming and trying to pacify us. And we said, no, we are very happy because we've got a diagnosis. And it kind of gave us a closure. We said, we need to now work towards what we were doing. I remember till a long time, he was always diagnosed with ADHD, which many children with Fragile X are also diagnosed with. And of course, autism. And we were giving him medications for ADHD. But the moment we got the diagnosis for Fragile X, we said, okay, I think let us work on what will help for Fragile X. Let's work at the root of the problem rather than the side problems. ADHD is not the principal problem. It's a secondary problem of Fragile X. So we did that. And then we realized there was nothing really. And Mrs. Shalini Kedia was working alone in this field. And she was more than happy because she also found parents like us who were like open about it. And that is again another problem. A lot of parents don't like to say that they have a child with a disability for various reasons. And with no this thing, it is, the society, a lot of problems each of us faces. But I think for us, what helped is telling it out in the open actually made our burden less, because even if there were issues, people would realize, okay, this kid has a problem. Okay, he's doing this because he has a problem, which made it easier for us, to explain to people also. And post that, we realized that doctors here are not, they know about Fragile X, but what can we do better that they're able to help more parents? And we sent a doctor to the US to get trained in the better nuances of Fragile X. And because US is the place for Fragile X with their more detailed knowledge about it. And we sent her there and we opened the first Fragile X clinic in India, in Umeed. Umeed is a child development center. So we sent a doctor from there to get trained in the US and come back. And she was already a developmental pediatrician. So she had to get in more ideas about Fragile X and what we could do with pre-mutation carriers like myself, because even pre-mutation carriers have trouble. Then there is something which affects the older adults with something like a Parkinson's kind of problem that comes up. So we needed someone who would be able to handle all that together. But it is okay, it goes on, but how successful, I don't know, because as I told you, there is still a taboo of wanting to get a DNA test done. But yes, we are working on it and at least trying to create awareness on Fragile X through these steps, And I think right now she's doing things, Mrs. Shalini Kedia is doing things of, getting people to be more aware of it. So Varun did a bake sale because he bakes very well. So for Valentine's Day, he did a bake sale. And so, things like that he keeps doing, or they keep encouraging, kids to show what they are good at.
Yes, it's really amazing how you took your personal experience and used it to build a broader awareness and to help others, especially. Talking about, you mentioned about Varun's bake sale. So how did Varun's journey of entrepreneurship start?
Yeah, so this started in 2014 or 15. And there was a teacher coming into Varun's earlier school. And then he would have this long break for about 2 months or 3 months. And I suddenly realized that Sophia College is a very good college in Bombay, which, it's actually a ladies' college and it's teaching girls with all the vocational courses. So that lady, Mrs. Shashi, was extremely nice. And she said, of course, Varun, he'll be the youngest child ever learning bakery, but we are okay with it. And she was extremely sweet to allow me to come in there and, be around with him. What worked very well for Varun was it was a total visual class. So they were given all the measurements and she would show it to them physically. I think that worked wonders with Varun. And he actually picked it up well. And of course, there was this mother of his, that is me, who kept pounding him and every week would make him do the work. So that is another key thing that parents need to know. Consistency is extremely important. Today I do, after 10 days, I'll say it's okay, let's not do anything. And after 20 days, you say, okay, I've forgotten. Because our children like us, all of us, we all like a routine. And I think the routine was the key. So he would learn there, and I would sit and make him do it in the weekend. So this kept happening. Initially, it was like, why am I doing all this and all that? But over a period, he started enjoying what he did. And once I think somebody came home and he had made something, and they said, wow, this is amazing. And he was like, okay, I can do so well. Okay, I will do. And then there were friends who started saying, why don't you just take some orders? And the slow little orders became bigger orders, and it just started somewhere. And he enjoyed doing that. And of course, he was always good at art. So art also happened. Then he designed his own logo for it. He drew a logo and he said, okay, I will do this. Let this be my logo. So we started a Varun Creations and a Varun's Delights, which is going well. And we knew the challenges that Varun was facing, with behavior and working in a place, for him to work in a industrial kitchen or so may be tough, because you will have so many people around who may not always understand that, Varun needs his personal space. So my husband said, the ideal thing is let him work from home. And I had to start, because when he learned baking, he didn't learn measurements. And as I've always told you, math and Varun don't go hand in hand. It was a challenge to teach him, okay, so this is how we will measure. So we got a digital scale, and he knew the numbers and he would start measuring. And so we started with a backward chaining, and then slowly, we reached a point where now he can measure on his own. He bakes on his own. He does the entire process on his own. So packaging, maybe I do. But otherwise, the baking stuff is done by him. And he tells me, you are my assistant. So you have to do this work for me. So he tries to behave like the super chef that he is. And so I think that has helped him gain knowledge. And, he now does it quite effortlessly. Sometime back, he had a huge order. And in fact, I was worried, how he's going to do it. And yes, I need to help him to kind of, okay, if you need to make 500 cookies, Varun, let's start 3 days back. So, you can make today 200, tomorrow 200 and another. So maybe that is what I need to still help him with, as to process how to go about it. But he, I think, is extremely diligent and hardworking, and he needs to complete. I think closure is important for both. I think with kids with Fragile X, closure is extremely important. So he does, he will diligently do the work that's given to him. So I think the baking part started off, and it's gone on well. And today I have parents who remember telling me, you didn't make him do NIOS. They have done NIOS, and now they are back to coming and wanting to do what Varun does. So it sometimes makes me feel very happy that, okay, I did not waste time when he's still learning. It's not that. And our aim is that he has to be a lifelong learner. It is not that, okay, I'm done now, I know this is all that I have to do. He has to learn more. As in, he enjoys it. So he's learning photography, and we are exposing him to different things, and where it takes him is not as important as him being happy doing what he's doing.
Definitely. And I think, as you mentioned, right, learning is a continuous process, not a one-time thing. And it's not just the baking skill that you nurtured. You actually identified more than one skill in Varun, and you grew that is illustration skills, especially the art skills. I think all your paintings behind you is created by Varun, if I'm correct. How did that?
And again, another thing is, I always tell parents, show your child's skills to him, because we keep all the paintings inside. I remember even whenever he used to draw, I would always frame those paintings. because he needs to know and somebody would appreciate it. And that is something which is also very important. Now he does good ones, but I used to frame even not the very good ones, because he will learn only when he needs some praise. We all need praise. So, and that is what his photography teacher also said. It's some excellent work, please frame it up. So, we have it framed so that people know that, okay, he can do this, he can do this. So, I think illustration, he doodled even as a kid. And I remember some of his teachers. I remember one of his teachers who lives now in Canada. She said, I would keep thinking this kid is doodling and not listening to what I'm teaching. But whenever I would ask a question, he would be the first one to answer. So we realized that doodling also reduced his anxiety, because he didn't have to look at the teacher and give eye contact, but he was grasping in things. So, so you need to explain that even to teachers or to educators who are working, that these are the strengths of these children. So use that, tap that, rather than we are always looking for what the child doesn't know to do. We are never looking at what the child can do. Oh, you can do this, I'm sure you can't do that. And I think many of our schools do that. So I think that is another mindset that needs to change.
Definitely.
And no better than you doing that. I mean, I come back to you for that always, because you've always believed in that system.
Definitely.
I wouldn't have imagined Varun would have done coding for this long and achieved finished creative coding. And I told you also, I hope there is something ahead, and which is great that there is a continuous learning process leading to something,
True. I think one of the goals for us is to build this interest and curate that into a skill set that potentially can be lifelong for him. Talking, also for us, we also want to form an inclusive society, like and more understanding. But how has it been for Varun, like from the schooling to the baking to the entrepreneurship? How has the society has reacted to him? What do you say?
It is a mixed audience that I've got. Some have been exceptional with him. Some we've had even challenges with special needs people doing courses, and we've had challenges there. I think if you have a child with a behavioral issue, it certainly becomes, people don't tolerate that. And everything else is okay. They are fine with your child sitting in one corner, they're still okay. But if a child has a behavior issue, I know the challenges. We've gone through those challenges, and we've had consequences that he has had to bear. And it has been tough. Believe me, it is tough. But overall, if I tell you, in Bombay, in my society, in my building, he's been very lucky, because they are all so very proactive towards him. And even the groups that people who get orders, Varun gets orders from different people, nobody actually thinks he's any different, which is great, And over a period, I am seeing a lot of improvement in the way people react. And as you say, your work shows it all. I think when he does those, when he bakes and sends it to them, or when his paintings get selected, or this time when he's done for the calendar for the independence, 75 years of independence. And when people see that, they realize, oh, okay, he's capable of doing so much. And I think it's just, people just have accepted him. Challenges are there, which is okay. And I think it will slowly go, because you can't keep explaining to the whole world. You can't be proving that your child is good to the whole world. His work will speak for himself. So challenges will remain. I'm not denying it, because our country is so diverse, Manu, that people have so many difficulties, whether that's poverty, so each one has to handle so many things, and they all have their own worries to handle. So we just want them to be empathetic. And I remember when I wrote to the government telling that, I want you to appreciate, not because he's neurodiverse, but I want you to see his work, and then only you please, if you think it's worth it, only then put it. And they did that, which was great. So it's a starting step for anybody.
True. That's really true. What you say about work delivers quality, right? So appreciate the quality of work that's coming from, not because they have a certain difference condition, and I think there's a lot of mindset that probably we as a community, we need to change. One is that difference starts from us, not from another person. I think this whole neurodiverse, neurotypical, I think we're all different in our own way, and we all function very differently, and we all have our own strengths. One of the things that I really admire about neurodiverse parents is that how you guys are challenging the traditional education system, because you guys are taking alternative path and you're still showing that they can succeed and they are succeeding.
Yes. I told you, parents with special needs are very resilient, and they know if this doesn't work, now let's try out something else. I think they don't give up.
Definitely. And I also hope more fathers and mothers are watching, that they understand it's a shared responsibility. It's just not the mother. And definitely living in a patriarchal country, that I do hope like less mothers are having taboo. That's really, really sad to hear what happens.
No, it will change. I think, Manu, it just needs a little more time. I think this generation, younger generation, is working on shared responsibilities. This is what I hear from some of my friends. They say her husband is also looking after the child, and which I feel is great, because I think now parents are realizing it's always a shared responsibility.
That's great to hear. Is there any other things that you would like to say to the audience today?
I think you've asked everything, and I would just like to say that all children can learn, all of us. I mean, everyone is capable of learning. One may take more time, one may take less time. And don't in any way think a child, a neurodiverse kid can't do. I mean, we are all examples. Our kids are all examples of that for you all. And with a little push and with some amount of empathy, I think, and people like Manu who also believe in that. You need very good people who will support this. I think that is very important. You can't just say, we parents are doing it. But if we don't have support from special schools, special teachers, or people like Manu who feel that, okay, the child is capable of doing something, then I don't think we have a problem at all. We will go ahead. And with the challenges, we need to push, we need to advocate. We need to advocate for our children. And I think now even others are advocating, and they know that there's no stopping us. And our children can do a lot of things and achieve their goal and be a responsible member of the society. Only if we include them in the society will you all know what they're capable of. So I think inclusion, and what better country than inclusion in India, because we are such a diverse country, and inclusivity is a part of our culture, I'm sure. So I think it's not difficult.
That's so true. And as you said, I think there's a lot of changes is happening in India. And I definitely think inclusivity and the way, like you said, right, they have to be included in the society to show what talent they have. And I hope more people, as they watch, they will know how to be more inclusive in the workplace, in the schools, in the education system particularly. And hopefully we'll try from there. Yes. Thank you so much, Veena, for joining our call today. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on your show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to our Global Dialogue series on neurodiversity. Our next episode will be on 5th April with Yen Perkis, an autistic author and advocate from Australia. Yen shares about why resilience is important for neurodiverse individuals and how it has shaped their own personal journey. Till then, take care and have a great week.